Hey, there you are. Welcome back. Hey, thanks for opening up this episode of our launch announcement video series. Hey, I appreciate you being here. Man, we got a great one today. We're going to be talking sales, and with that, we get to mention plant sales. I love talking about plant sales. So, yeah, that's why all the green. So don't be adjusting your monitor thinking, oh man, that's way too much green. I'm not trying to go green screen. We're not that high tech yet. But we got the green background, got the green shirt, all about those plant cells, photosynthesis, glucose, starches, glycogen, all that good stuff. But we're talking cells today, so let's don't waste any of your time. Let's get right into it. Hey, this week is a pretty cool week as far as the course. Once this one ends, man, we're going to turn the page on the calendar. And once this week ends, we will be halfway done in our 8-week course. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty special. And then we will be able to get into February. February's got all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, you got Valentine's Day. My son's birthday's in February. His daughter's in February. Birthday's in February. So it's a pretty cool month overall. And so looking forward to that. So with that, let's get into it. Hey, kind of a short week as far as the list of things. I know last week, man, we had a bunch last week. So hopefully you got through all that well. But as you can see there, we're working Tuesdays and Thursday this week. And we've got 4 modules to get through. We got to start at 18 if you're current. If you're not, man, hey, be sure you get yourself caught up. Don't get yourself behind and have to have a big flurry in February to get through. But we got 18, 19, 20, and 21. So four of them. And 2 of them are quizzes. So one of them just a straight quiz based off of the transport stuff we did last week. And then the other one is a quiz. It's kind of a working quiz. You go through a bunch of stuff, but I'll explain all that. So we'll be doing that. And so, hey, let's introduce our stuff. Let me get the right button there. There we go. So, hey, looking at, there we go. I need to adjust myself there. So looking at our, thinking about cells this week, we are going to be talking about eukaryotic cells. We're going to talk about those, prokaryotic cells, and really what we'll be doing is to set up the differences, similarities, that kind of stuff. And then we'll get into animal and plant cells with the same purpose. Talk about how they're similar, how they're different, and the organelles is really what we're after. Part of the work, big chunk of the work that you got to do this week is wrapped around the organelles and everything. So we'll be talking about those, giving you hopefully the ammunition you need to be successful this week. So with that, let's get into it. In this portion of our video, we're going to be going over, we'll spend the first part kind of going over the units, the modules this week, and just letting you know what you've got going on. And then down below there, we will get into the material for today, the discussion about the cells that I promised. So let me get a pen here, and how about a little rainbow today? Yeah, a little rainbow. So we're going to start here, 18, and you can see 18 is a graded quiz, 12 points, so that kind of point to, spoiler alert, maybe 12 questions. And in my teacher version, I've got a preview, but I can only assume that in this point, on your screen, it would say take the quiz or the quiz, but you and I don't see it exactly the same. When I click on this button, I get this screen right here, and you can see the list of questions there. And no, if the question is, will I start clicking on them so you can see them ahead of time? And no, we can't do that. But what you're going to need to do is look through. Yeah, this material here will be a refresher course to the material. And then as you scroll down this screen, these questions okay, are down there. Some are multiple choice, some are short answer, but you've got the material there that you can look at. I mean, you can try it without it if you think you're solid on that, but certainly would recommend reading the material first and then going through the quiz. So that's 18. So let me empty this, or close that I should say, and scroll this down. Bring this up. So again, get my pen back here. So now we're in 19. You can see that right there and over here. So the same kind of thing. Again, this is my button that I see, and again can only assume that yours says take the quiz or get into the material, something. And let's see, you can see a graded quiz here, and that number is 6. That's kind of small. Let me close this and see if we can't make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And kind of center that just a little bit. There we go. So now you can see that's a 6, and so that might be a spoiler alert to 6 questions. And again, when you click on this, this is what pops up. Again, 19. And again, you will watch this video, and then there's just a series of things going down here, and the questions are just down there. So you'll be scrolling down, you'll watch this video, scroll down, do some more stuff. Again, materials to look at, and then the quiz questions to take. So that is 19. Move this down here. All right, so scoot it over just a little bit, bring my pen back. So now we're to 20. Okay, now we're to 20. And again, this is the top half of 20, and this is the bottom half, just so you can kind of see everything. This apply right here is the same as this apply over here. And I just wanted to see that bottom part so you can see what you're going to be doing. So you've got something to read. Okay, you can see right there, that wasn't very good. And then there it is right there. You'll click on that. Okay, and you'll read all of that. And when you get to that point where you're ready, then you will see that you've got some things to do over here. And part of it is getting back into your survival journal. So that will be one side note that you have this week. So you'll jump back into that one more time. And that is 20. And then the main event, which the content will be wrapped around, is 21 here. This is 21. And it starts with this little read. And when you click on that link right there, it pops out into this. And now as you can see, you're in a little reading comprehension stuff. And down here, as you scroll down, there's a bunch of activities to do that will help you to complete your activity and assignment. It's going to be a little written text. You'll have one of those assignments where you got a dialog box, and you'll type into it information, and that assignment is down at the bottom of this. So once you get done with all this, you'll go back to your original tab here, scroll down, and complete the assignment activity. So that is, let me close this pen, kind of a walk through your 4 modules this week. And so now let's talk some sales. Okay, let me get my pen back here. Hey, eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells. Hopefully you've got some familiarity with these in your middle school days, your life science year. And if this is your first biology course, then this may be, well, surely you've seen these by now, but I shouldn't say it like that, but we're here to talk about them. Eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are certainly the bacteria cells. Okay, and there's some fungus cells that are the same way, some yeast cells that are that way. But even though the list is small as far as who is a prokaryotic cell, they by far outnumber the number of eukaryotic cells. I mean, just here in my little workroom, teacher room here, there's me, so that would be one eukaryotic cells. And even though I may have, lots of them inside of me, just in this room alone, just the bacteria cells and things like that, they're laying around, and you may be saying, "Whoa, that's a bad deal." Not necessarily. Don't forget that over 90% of all bacteria cells end up being helpful. It's those pesky few that aren't that really cause us a lot of trouble. But on your skin, you've got a lot of bacteria cells that is there, and it's a benefit. It eats up bad stuff and takes care of that stuff. So, not a bad situation and all. But one thing we want to talk about is the things inside. Okay, so a eukaryotic cell is going to have lots of organelles. I mean, you can see the nucleus here in this light blue, and of course the nucleolus, and it's got mitochondria labeled here for you, and it's got these little ribosomes here, and this green here is supposed to represent the reticulum. Okay, both the smooth and the rough reticulum, and then this purplish with the red border, the Golgi apparatus, leading to proteins that are made, being released from the cell, the ones that are allowed to or needed to. So a lot going on, and we're going to, when we get into animal and plant cells, we'll break down a lot of those main organelles. And over here, prokaryotic cells, you can see the kind of the exact opposite. Very few things. Okay, they don't need all that machinery, because really its purpose is to find a host and then let the host do all the work. So our animal cells, as you can see, we don't have this flagellum over here, because ours don't need to move around. If we have such distinct tissue layers that once your cells start to differentiate early on and become the different various tissues. I mean, you don't want your heart tissue, your heart cells that make up your heart tissue, to be moving around to other parts of the body. They don't need to do that. You don't want them to do that. So we don't need that mobility. But prokaryotic cells, bacteria cells, they do need that. And this flagellum here gives them great ability to move around. Here you just see one, but there's variations of the flagellum and how many they have and where they are. I mean, you can get them with just one on one end. You can get them where they have one on both ends, or you can have multiples on one end, or you can have multiples on both ends. And they just give you a lot of flexibility in moving forward, backwards, turning, adjusting, all that stuff. But then the next thing, you can see the capsule here, and we don't have that on our cells. We just have the membrane, the plasma membrane on the edge. But that capsule is pretty important to prokaryotic cells, and because that's what protects them. That's what makes them so difficult to get rid of. When you get you a bacteria infection, you got to take some antibiotics for that. That's one of the reasons why they always stress to take them all, even when you start to feel better, because you got to make sure that you get rid of them all. And those antibiotics are designed to attack, the capsule to some extent and the cell wall to an extent, because we can safely do that because we don't have those things. If we have medicine that can break down those exterior and enable the cells to be destroyed, whether by your own immune system, the lysosomes, or just the medicine in general, then you can get rid of them, and we can safely do that because we don't have those things. That's the thing we can attack on a prokaryotic and a bacteria cell. But you can see inside, okay, we don't have a lot of those organelles in here, and they don't need a lot. They've got the ribosomes. They've got a nucleoid, which contains their DNA material. And that's just about it. Okay, they don't need a lot of stuff in there to get done, because really their main purpose is to get their DNA into you, so your machinery, your cell division process, begin to manufacture that for them. Okay, let me close my tray here, and I mean to grab that, slide this up, and we will, let's just go out here a little bit. Let me bring this back down evenly. There we go. And then slide it over just a little bit and bring the pin back up. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of walk around and talk about the organelles and what they do. And then as they're in both, we'll highlight that. And then the ones that are only in one, and that's mostly the plant cell, has some special things to that do that, and so we'll highlight those. So we'll just start at the top here. We'll just start at the mitochondria. Okay, and you can see they've got one over here as well. So the mitochondria, and we know that's about the energy. And that's not a great penmanship, but when you're writing with your mouth, what are you going to do? That's about the energy and that process. Hopefully you're familiar with cellular respiration and that process, but that's the idea of the cells, or the glucose that plants make during photosynthesis. That's the idea of taking that, breaking that down, and releasing the energy from that. And that occurs within the mitochondria. Not the mitochondria itself that's doing all that, but machinery. And when I say machinery, I'm talking about proteins and things like that are within the mitochondria that take care of that, break that glucose down, those sugars down, with the idea of getting ATP. And so that whole process. So hopefully you got some familiarity with cellular respiration and how that works. Okay, our next one is the plasma membrane, and here it is right over here. Okay, cell membrane, plasma membrane. That organelle, this organelle, is super important because it controls what comes into the cell as well as what goes out of the cell. And that's super important. Okay, that whole idea of active transport, passive transport that you talked about in the previous modules, that's super important. And it's more than just letting things in or out. I mean, it's the whole security and checks and balances, and that whole process of recognizing molecules and what they are, and deciding, hey, can they come in or not? And that's all done through chemical reactions and recognition in that manner. But super, super important. This is like that security guard at the gate of a secured area, whether it's a military base or just a super important governmental building or just a super important business setup that they really got to control who comes in and out. That security guard sitting in that shack, maybe out by the outer gate, and you approach, and they got to check the ID, and maybe check their clipboard to see if you're expected, and maybe make a call to somebody to confirm that you need to be let in. And if everything checks out, you get to come in. And if it doesn't get checked out properly, then they say nope, and they turn you away. So that's the plasma membrane. The next one is the cytoplasm, right here and over here. Where do they have it? Oh, right down here. Cytoplasm, super important. If you could think about, shipping something, maybe it's something that's fragile, breakable. You are going to pack that thing full of those packing peanuts or a tremendous amount of bubble wrap or anything like that. I know in these day and times, with Amazon being so a big part of most people's lives and how they receive things anymore, or these times, We get a lot of packages, and man, things are just full of stuff designed to keep them in place and to make sure they don't get damaged during shipping. And that's the cytoplasm. Everything, all the organelles just kind of nestle into it. It's kind of a semi gel-like substance, watery. It's almost like jelly in a jar. I mean, you've got your watery that can separate, but just kind of that gel-like substance, and the organelles just kind of nestle in there. But things that need to move around, diffuse through the cell, it does give them a medium to move through. So that is your cytoplasm. And let's jump down to some lysosomes here. And we have them labeled over here. Nope. Lysosomes are super important. I mean, in the town I live in, on Thursday, the people that have the job or the purpose to go around and collect all the trash from everybody's house in the trash trucks, that's kind of the lysosomes' job. They travel around, move around, and when they encounter some debris, whether it's a broken down organelle that doesn't work anymore, or fragments of bacteria, or just anything that needs to be getting rid of, that's the lysosome's job. They'll engulf that, and inside they've got digestive kind of enzymes and solutions that are the purpose of just kind of breaking down material, and then they will eventually go to the plasma membrane and excrete that, release that out into the outside of the cell, the extracellular matrix, and of course that can be in the blood, that can be in the tissue, and eventually it finds its way into the bloodstream, and then it can be filtered out and eventually removed as waste in some manner. So that's the lysosomes. Okay, and so our next one is, we're going to circle this whole thing, but really we're also going to come over here and circle this one. We're going to talk endoplasmic reticulums, and over here smooth ER, endoplasmic reticulum, and rough ER, endoplasmic reticulum is what the ER stands for. Those are super important. They are the rough ER, rough endoplasmic reticulum, is part of the protein making process. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for making the lipids, the fatty acids. So the rough ER, it's called rough because it's got ribosomes, and you can see all those little dots. I'll circle a ribosome here, and then here's the name here. But the rough ER's got those ribosomes attached to it, giving it kind of that rough, bumpy look. And the smooth ER does not. The ribosomes, and so we're just going to kind of talk about two organelles here at the same time. The ribosomes, once the RNA strand is made out of a DNA duplication and transcription and translation, the ribosomes will attach on to an RNA strand and begin to read it and begin to collect those needed amino acids with the idea of making that protein strand, bonding those amino acids together into a long strand which forms a protein, and based on which amino acids are being used determines kind of the function of the protein. So the ribosomes do the actual protein creation, but they're attached to the rough ER, and they can be free floating as well. And then the smooth ER makes those fatty acids, those lipids, for those macromolecule stuff. Okay, the next one we want to talk about is the Golgi apparatus. And over here, Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus is, again, part of that protein process because once the ribosomes make it and it travels through the rough ER down to the Golgi apparatus, which is just a series of kind of flattened sacs and tubes to travel through. And when it gets to the end, it's in a little vesicle, and you can see that referenced right here, those proteins, and then they can be shipped anywhere that they are needed to be shipped to. So you can think of the Golgi apparatus as that packaging and preparation for transportation or for movement. So whether that's a UPS, post office, FedEx kind of a thing, where they're just getting the stuff packaged up, ready to go, ready to be shipped, and move out. Let's see, the last two that we'll focus on here is we'll go nucleus here, and the nucleus is one of the more well-known organelles, as you can imagine. That's where your DNA is contained, and so that is super important. So we kind of think of that as kind of the brains or the command center, the control center for everything. But that's where your DNA is, and when it's time for that DNA to be duplicated, translated and transcribed, that nucleus actually dissolves and lets it to be out in the open, so all the work can be done. And then once the cell divides, and it comes back and contains it again. So super important there. And the last one we're going to talk about, and this one would be easy to find, large central vacuole, and over here vacuole right there. Vacuoles are super important to every cell, and certainly to plant cells, because of the idea of storage. And you can think of mostly of water, but it stores other things in there as well. But you can think of it as water storage, and we have in our cells lots of small vacuoles, kind of like little water reservoirs, whereas plant cells have a large vacuole, and you can think of them as those big water tanks that every town has. And if it's a small town, it's visible high in the horizon somewhere, and typically got the name of the city, or maybe the school's mascot, or just whatever it may have. But it's super important to plants, because when that vacuole is full and it's pressed against, spreading out and pushing against the cell wall, it creates that pressure, or it creates a pressure, and it's officially known as turgor pressure. But it creates that pressure against the cell wall, and when it does that, it gives the plant cell some powerful strength. And it can act like, once you stack those cells on top of each other, like a tower, lots of towers, lots of columns, kind of like our vertebrae. It gives it that little strength to stand up. That's why when plants are nice and watered, they can stand upright and they're very tall. But once they start to lose some water and wilt a little bit, they kind of lean over. And then once you water them real good, in a certain amount of time, they'll stand right back up. And it's because of that turgor pressure, that pressing out against the cell wall. So that is the vacuoles. And so now, in our last little bit, we'll talk about some things that are only in the plant cell. And this is a list that you're probably well familiar with, but certainly like the cell wall. And the other big one is the chloroplast. Okay, those two are super important to plants. That cell wall gives them some needed security, but that cell wall is also part of the reason why we don't do well at digesting plant material. It's made of cellulose, and we don't have all the proper enzymes that can break down cellulose. So that's part of the reason why we struggle with eating plant or digesting plant material. But the other big one is the chloroplast, and you can't begin to overstate. You can never overstate the importance of the chloroplast. That organelle, soaking in those sun's energy, those sun's rays, and the end product of making glucose molecules. That's super important, because then the herbivores can eat that, and then the carnivores can come in and eat the herbivores, and it's just a beautiful cycle between the products that the plant makes and the products that we can make. And that's the whole cellular respiration photosynthesis, and that's a conversation for another day. But we could talk a bunch about that. Love talking about that stuff. But that is just a short look at some of the organelles that are a part of both, and then a look at some of the organelles that are only in the plant cells. So with that, we will get back into our video. Well, that is our, as you can see, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Love talking about the plant cells and the different types of cells and the different organelles that are a part of that. So I hope that gives you the ammunition that you need. Hey, at any point in time this week when you're going through things, that you've got a question, that you need some help, need some direction, hey, you just let me know, shoot me a canvas, whatever, and we will make it happen. We will get you the resources that you need so that you can be as successful as possible, because that's really the end game of this. It's not about you checking the boxes and getting everything done. It's about comprehension. It's about understanding. It's about the material consuming. It's about you learning the material, not about just getting done. I mean, if we're doing this just to get done, checking boxes like that, then we are not doing it for the right purpose. We want you to learn this material so at some point in time in the future, when you need it, you've got it. And so with that, we will say goodbye.